Awesome. Okay, so we are going to play Die. So let me give you the short background to Die, and indeed, open admission, my deep love of the comics drives everything here. So Die is a comic written by a guy called Kieran Gillian. He then went on to make a role-playing game based on the comic. This is that role-playing game. In the comic, and this will become very obviously relevant to yourselves, it's kind of Narnia-esque / Jumanji-esque in that there were this bunch of kids, they were playing role-playing games, and then they got this magical game, they went to this other world, they did all these amazing adventures, they became super amazing people, then they came back, all of them. Then several years later, their lives, for various reasons, had gone to rubbish, and in particular, the guy who was the GM's life had gone to rubbish, and he tricks them into playing the game, and they all end up back in the other world. And then it turns out the other world is kind of not really what they thought it was, and there's lots of sorting out of who they are as people and experiencing that. So fundamentally, that's what Die is about. Die is about this kind of two-layered narrative. So the top layer of the narrative is what are called your personas. So you will each, and we'll go through this process in a second, we each develop a real-world person, potentially real-world person, who will represent as your persona. Once we have done that, your persona will then create a player character who will be that second layer, and that is your paragon. So you have a persona and a paragon. The game is fundamentally about the resolution of or not resolution, as the case may be, of traumas and grief and sadness in your persona's life through the agency of adventuring as their paragon. The world which you find yourselves in reflects those things. So it is a combination of fantasy elements and things from the background of your personas that are then sort of transmitted into that world. And I was going to just run the one shot, but I've actually decided we'll just dive straight in and make up the full shebang. It's a very light rule set game, needless to say. Rules are not heavy here. Basically, it's a D6 based system. You get an additional die depending on what paragon you play. And we'll talk about paragons. I get to determine what paragon you take based on what I perceive your personas indicate. Obviously, if you feel strongly about a paragon, don't really want to play one or really want to play another one, then, let's have that chat. Obviously, it's not a dictatorship. Although one of the paragons is called the Dictator. And basically what we do is, in a pretty freeform sort of model, we explore this kind of fantasy universe, and your characters have these encounters which represent their trauma, their lost dreams, their hopes, their desires. It is announced at the beginning of the game, and it is important for you guys to understand, the campaign has a finite end. So the point of the campaign is to make a determination at the end as to whether your characters will stay in the fantasy world or whether they will leave it. So there is a final decision that all the players have to make. And when you first join the game, that is explained. Like I said, the system is D6 based. It's based successes versus a target number. A success is achieved on a 4 or better on a D6. So I set a difficulty, which is the number of successes you need. You deduct that number of successes. You deduct my target number from your successes. As long as you have 1 or more successes, then you're in like Flynn. If you have 0 or less successes, then perhaps not so much. 6s can and do trigger special abilities in those circumstances where they are relevant. The fundamental premise of the game is sort of aligned to D&D. There's even spells and those sorts of things floating around. If you've already read the rules that I sort of threw up onto the Google thing, you will know, you probably will have a bit of a clue as to what sort of paragons are available. So you may have already read ahead to see what sort of paragons are available. There is so there's a couple of initial questions, and the way the game is set up is you work through what are called rituals. So there's these rituals we go through, which is very much aligned to, for those of us who come from software development backgrounds, agile sort of kind of methodology stuff. So, which is just basically, these are the standard ways we do things. I've never really understood why the agile people keep on referring to them as rituals, but I live in that world, so I forgive them.
Because it sells training courses.
What's that?
Because it sells training courses.
That's right, it is. And then you can get people who call themselves agilists, which is the worst word in human history. Okay, so there's a couple of really foundational questions we need to ask. Now, at the same time, has everyone gone onto the role instance? Oh, except for me. Yeah, I should probably join. That's good. Let's do that. All right, I am now on the role plan. Yes, we're all here. Hey, it's that weird hippie shaman guy that we were running around with. Anyway, all right, good. So I have created a persona note sheet, which I will give to each of you so that you can take notes, and also so I can see what answers you gave to the questions. So when I'm coming up with additional session material later on, I will be able to draw upon that. So that is why I have created all of that in Roll. Now, we just need to have a quick discussion on what level of tone we're happy with. We have to have a quick discussion on how we might want to, how much inter-party conflict we're going to have. And then, and I kid you not, we need to have a discussion about how much power we're going to let the dictator have in the game. and we should note, we may not actually have a dictator in the game, but if we did, we need to have that discussion, because dictators are like, but what's the line? They're like bards, but scary. What if bards were scary?
And everyone was terrified of them.
And everyone was terrified of them. That's what a dictator is. Okay, so let's talk about tones. So we've got 3 settings. They're all pretty standard. You've got standard fantasy. Aha! Pathfinder, to use as the reference point, or D&D 5e without the Strahd as the other reference point. We have dark fantasy, which is the default for the game. I should read out. So when they talk about standard fantasy, personas have left their mundane lives to enter a truly fantastic world where they can be heroes and right old wrongs, at least in fiction. There's always a grey area, but it's easy to distinguish between right and wrong. The world is exciting and dangerous, but challenges exist to be triumphed over, and there is always hope. That is standard fantasy. Dark fantasy. Personas will confront their past regrets, fight old enemies, remember old grudges, and make hard choices in a world where it's hard to tell if there is a right thing to do. The world is frightening and full of challenges, but they may be overcome if you fight hard enough and are willing to make sacrifices. The third setting, personas of dark horror. Dark horror. Personas are trapped in a landscape of their worst fears. Every choice is the wrong one. The world is trying to kill you, and there's a good chance that it will. The question is, how much of a fight will you put up before it finally gets you? All right, so guys, what sort of game would you like to explore?
I'm thinking tortured angst is good. Like, not the last version, like, because that is just crushing. But the dark fantasy sounds fine.
If I want dark horror, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Dave. I was just going to say the same thing. I'm happy with the middle of the road, sort of middle choice. Yeah. Life is a bit too real at the moment for like for existential horror based on personas. So let's my view would be the middle one, but I'm open to any other.
Right. So dark fantasy, Dave.
Yeah,
dark fantasy.
But I'm happy with dark fantasy. If I wanted dark horror, I'd go play Cult.
Yeah.
This is the truth. This is the truth. A game I own and have never run.
I do play Cult from time to time, but I suppose if I wanted a cult-like experience, I'd play cult.
Yeah, I've always been really tempted, Dave, but it's almost too Catholic for my liking.
Oddly enough, the best GM that I've had for cult is a Puerto Rican guy that teaches at a Catholic university.
There you go.
Right there.
Yeah, you're right. I think you're very right. There is a lot of Catholicism in there, a lot of guilt. It's unresolved. Which is odd because I think it's written by Swedes, or the latest version.
It is written by Swedes. No, it's always been written by Swedes.
Yeah.
But it's the dark horror Swedes.
Mm.
And they are the dark horror Swedes. They're actually quite famous. It's Helmgast, isn't it?
Mm.
Helmgast. Yeah. Although then I think they also released Troubleshooters, which is like Tintin. So I don't know. Where do you draw? How do you mix those two? They do. I don't get it. All right. So cool. So we'll be going for dark fantasy. So Ross, Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay levels of dark fantasy, I think will be the catch-all for this one. So in my mind, that does mean I don't get to just make every session an unremitting hellscape.
Is that what you wanted to do, Thomas?
No, not at all. I have staff to persecute. Why would I persecute you?
Don't persecute your friends. Just do it to your
right.
staff.
That's right. Persecute your staff.
Because we can't report you to HR.
That's right. That is true. I am the HR advocate for the firm, so it would be a bad look. All right. So then what we're going to do is let's talk a little bit intra-party conflict. So this is the level of conflict you're willing to that we can have as friends, for want of better language. Okay, so option A, no direct conflict between party members or player characters at all. So you're always working together towards the goal and there's never any real conflict between you. During the climax, so this is that final decision I referenced earlier about how the game ends, right? On that final cusp of decision making. During the climax, direct conflict between player characters might emerge, but otherwise is not a featured part of our story, which is sort of the default. So this is also about what I insert into the game, to be clear. So it's about limiting how much I can put things into the game that would drive inter-party conflict based on your character's backgrounds. For instance, creating a situation which explicitly has a binary scenario where one player would win or the other player would win, depending on which binary choice you make. Direct conflict between player characters possible throughout the game if narrative demands it. Noting that we started with Jess last time. Dave.
I'm happy with a bit of conflict, so long as the narrative demands it. Going head to head, I think might get a bit savage, but I'm happy with some, so long as it makes sense.
Okay. I'm doing it in reverse order. So Ross, where are you?
I'm the same. I think if there's a narrative reason and it makes sense within the world, depending on either world that we're dealing with, I'm all for it. Just having confrontation for confrontation's sake, nah. But if it's tied to the story, let's do it.
All right. Sharon.
Yeah, if it makes sense in the narrative, then yeah. But no, again, no conflict for conflict's sake.
All right, and then Jess, are you comfortable with that setting?
Same.
Okay.
I'm happy with that.
So one thing to recognize is this could be conflict between personas and or paragons. So just remember that in this thing. So it's probably about the conflict between the personas and then the paragons acting out that conflict. Do you see what I mean? Okay, so the last sort of oh no, we've got the question about the ending. Oh yeah, that's right. Okay. So then the next question is the dictator role. Okay. So as previously discussed, the dictator's like a bard, but really powerful. They get the crappiest dice in the game because they're so goddamn powerful. So the dictator can invoke emotions in others. They can force another to act out an emotion, is their kind of meta power. Now, for NPCs, that's fine. You can make an NPC feel self-loathing. You can make an NPC feel love. You can make an NPC feel rage. There's all these gradations of emotion hiding behind these statements, so that's fine. Well, actually, to be fair, there is a question about whether you're even comfortable to have the dictator in the game, and noting there's only 4 players, we will definitely only have 4 or 5 character paragons, so we may not have a dictator, depending on what, even if we do decide we want one or are happy to have one. So the first question is noting that they can not only invoke emotion in the moment, but also evoke emotion that can be permanently affecting on another paragon. So they can actually force in worst case scenario, they can force another paragon to feel that emotion constantly. So they can basically reset that character in some particular fashion. So you have a couple of options with this, and the way it works is you can actually mandate that all the dictator can do is attack with the motion, and what that means is they literally just cause damage. They don't have this fundamental psychological effect on other PCs. So they can cause damage to another, but they can't actually use it to sort of permanently change someone's emotional status. The default answer is they can only use this voice, which is the controlling feature, on NPCs, to be clear. So the suggestion in the rules is you only let dictators use their voice on NPCs. They can attack other players in conflict, but they can't do that. The other 2 options are, yes, we will allow the voice to do whatever they want. So we'll allow the dictator to play their character to the fullest. And if they start dicking around with other people's paragons, then so be it. The third option, which is actually mildly attractive and is obviously the middle road, is maybe, but the dictator explicitly has to ask the player for permission to use their ability on the paragon or persona of the other character. So it's actually literally Dave asks Shah, are you okay if I use the voice on your character in this moment? So there's an explicit consent to do that. So those are your 3 options. So I think we might just go the other way and kind of mix it around. So Ross, what are your thoughts on that character?
I think we've taken the middle road on every choice. So a part of me is very tempted by having a sort of out of control dictator. A part of me likes the idea of it and how it would react. So I'm conflicted. I like that idea. I'm kind of interested to see how that might play out, especially if we're allowing some narrative conflict. But the middle road is also completely acceptable.
Yeah, so maybe, and sorry to jump in before I ask anyone else, but to perhaps offer the 4th option, which is kind of the 3rd option, maybe we start with the consent model and then we see how it works, and then we can make a determination down the road whether we're still comfortable, whether we want to flip it the other way. Like, we can sort of push that decision down the road a bit, and for now say yes, but with consent. Training wheels model. Yeah. The training wheels model.
Yeah. This is how dictatorships happen.
It is. It's the slow road to dictatorship. Yeah. Okay, so just to confirm, and I sort of saw affirmation from almost everyone, but Jess didn't see you particularly evidence and opinions. So are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, I'm very conflicted because part of me is like, wildness, but like, no, be nice. Yeah, I don't know. I think the training wheels is probably the best option.
Well, or if everyone's feeling like they want to see what it's like, we can just go, yeah, let it rip. And then if we decide let it rip doesn't work, we can come back to it later. Because actually the vibe I'm getting from you guys is actually you're all a bit keen on the idea of the dictator just running rampant over all the other paragons.
You're like, how disruptive could this be? And what would it be like? And would I just get really upset? Like, I still remember how hurt I was when Rick did that total party kill and killed my paladin. Like, I don't want to have that feeling again.
This is like I've almost got my emotional outcome for my character, and then the dictator just goes, you know what? Nah, fuck that. I don't like the idea of you getting that. I don't feel like you should get that reward. I'm stripping it from you and making it awful for you. But
Yeah.
I want to say let's go with the training wheels. Actually, you know what? I think let's just test it, and we might not even get one. Although, based on party response, I probably will put a dictator in the game. So it's a pretty high chance. All right. And then finally, what sort of game ending are we looking for right now? So we have a couple of choices here. And this is, once again, a little bit like what we just discussed with the dictator, not set in stone. So if we play the game and as we play through sessions and we go, actually, let's go back to that and see if we still think that's the vibe we want at the end. Then let's see that. I refer to the guy who wrote The Walking Dead, who was interviewed recently about the ending of the comic and said when he first started writing the comic, he intended it to be this apocalyptic hellscape and everyone was dead. And then Robert Kirkman, that's right. And as he got further on, he changed his mind. And the last panel of the last comic is set 30 years in the future. And it's like they've got civilization and they're sort of, the guy's actually sitting on a chair surrounded by kids and like things have kind of worked and there's a statue to his dead dad. And, you know, so he changed his mind as he wrote the comic about how he would end it. So on that note, the options are, and these are not the only options, they're just the ones that are on the table. A hard won but happy ending, victory in that final moment, an emotionally complicated but satisfying conclusion, or a cathartic tragedy. These broadly, needless to say, align to the 3 fantasy options we discussed earlier.
You've just got to go for the satisfying conclusion. That's like...
Yeah.
So an emotionally complicated but satisfying conclusion. Is that where we're all at?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, luckily that's the default, so that's not good. All right.
Well, I think just speaking to that, if we're making the decision at the end of it whether we remain in the game or back in real life, you've really got to go the emotionally complicated route. Otherwise, we're all doomed, or everything's rosy.
Yeah.
I think the narrative would sort of demand that middle road.
Yeah. God, I didn't think we'd be discussing metaphysics this early already.
I'm just surprised. Like I'm at a table of reasonable people. It doesn't happen with gamers.
Look, I'm going to point out that I work very hard to collect reasonable people for gaming. When I used to be a director, my staff would come to me and say, "Who do you want at the meeting?" And I said, "Everyone with the reasonableness gene." And they'd look at me blankly for a second, and I'd go, "No, I'm dead serious. That's actually the criteria for coming to my meeting." All right. So then, finally, just to note, and look, part of this is I'll be upfront about some of my own things here. What are we inviting? What are we not inviting into the game? What are we inviting into the game? And we don't have to have a list right away, but so I'll be upfront. Things that I won't include in the game. I don't include sexual violence just because A, I'm uncomfortable describing it, and B, I found there's almost no scenario where it moves the narrative forward that you couldn't find another way to move the same narrative forward. And I was involved not that long ago in a game where someone decided to do that, and it was desperately uncomfortable, and I did not enjoy it at all. So I have been reminded that, as it turns out, not a big fan. So I won't include sexual violence, and I won't include sort of on-scene murder of small people. Those are my 2 sort of absolute no-goes. I'm pretty happy to describe body horror, as you're all aware, since we did the D sanction. All of that sort of stuff is hilarious and fun, and people will end up doing bro chest bounces when they've kicked heads across the room. But yeah, and I mean, and certain, and obviously trauma associated with those 2 things. So those are my no-goes. Those are the 2 things that I won't bring to the table. Are there any other things that people would like to declare as something they'd be particularly uncomfortable with? And by the way, we don't have to have a list right now. We can see how we go. And if there's something that people are not okay with, then we can A, X card it in the moment, but B, also agree we probably won't go there again.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only thing is, like, if there's going to be slimy horror, like
Mm.
with these lots of goop and fluids, I find that really greedly. I can tolerate it, but you're going to have to put up with me going.
I once caused someone to run out of a room because I described a giant spider too effectively. It was in the moment, and it was in Pendragon, and there was a spider sitting on their face because they'd gotten onto the Lothi bed, which is this very famous bed. And turns out they were a bit of an arachnophobe, and I probably overdid it. So, but I was 20, and it was a long time ago. So
Yeah, it was before we knew what safety tools were.
hey, it's a fair while. It's a fair while before safety tools. I think that's fair. Okay, so is there anything people would like to specifically have included in the game? And this does not. Now that we've talked about all the negatives of life, is there anything that anyone would specifically like to see in the game?
Sorry, just quickly with exclusions.
Yeah.
I guess gratuitous on-screen violence against animals. Like, I'm okay with animals being killed narratively. It's just like dwelling on the details.
Cool. Absolutely.
And probably veil romance. Like, it happens again, but
sorry, Dave, I missed that. What was the second one?
Sex and romance, if we could veil it, just so like don't get into the icky details.
Off-screen romance.
Off-screen, yeah, off-screen's fine.
Off-screen. Okay, yeah, that is fine.
So I've had games where it's like, oh yeah, okay, we're cool with relationships as a theme, and you just sit there and it's like, well, it's been an hour and a half in this scene already. Can we move on? There's got to be like some more plot here somewhere.
Okay, no, I'm not equipped with those skills, but at the same time, so noted. So cruelty to animals is out, along with cruelty to children and sexual violence. Okay, and animals to animals.
I think the closest we ever got to romance in any game was the Dune game, where my character fell in love with my enemy. And we had this kind of like epic thing. And the height of it was when I shot her in a duel.
And didn't then kill her because you loved her.
Yeah.
Which turned out to save the entire group because she was the Bene Gesserit spy that you needed to talk to work out how to take down the other house. And if you'd killed her, you would have not had access to her information.
Yeah.
So as it turned out, that romance paid off in the end.
Saved the day.
Love saved the day. Yes, but that was all very much. Are you telling me that you don't consider the One Ring marriage arranging by the halfling to be not romance? That seems harsh. Okay, it isn't been.
Oh, okay, that was pretty romantic, but that's not between characters. That was
it's
like
also
a
not really
marriage.
Romantic. It's actually very political.
No.
All right, so animals, children, and sexual violence is out. And if we could just keep the romance off screen.
Narratively appropriate.
I like that. Yeah.
Narratively appropriate. It's when it gets cringy.
Okay.
Yeah.
It sounded like that was a really lingering love scene. Oh, God.
Okay, so I have added in the words narratively appropriate. Okay. So we were going to, so the last question I was going to ask is stuff to add in. So you can pick anything, right? Like it could be stuff you like, stuff you're interested in, like something that we can use to include in the game as we play it. So if the converse of the above, if you're particularly into, African wildlife and you'd like to see some African wildlife make an appearance in the game, then, I am more than okay with including African wildlife. So that legitimately, if there's any, and once again, same as the earlier comment, we don't have to make that decision now, but if there's stuff that you particularly would like to see in the game as a theme or as an idea, please feel free to do so. My fingers are ready to type.
I am a fan of random, unexpected slapstick comedy, but that's simply because I have been cursed by the dice gods and always roll really badly, so it happens anyway.
Okay. So, when narratively appropriate, there may be
When
random,
narratively.
which is our byline now, when narratively appropriate. Random and unexpected slapstick comedy. We may actually title this this campaign "When Narratively Appropriate," because that's kind of where I feel we've landed. So that's, and by the
Tell a
way,
good story.
a fantastic podcast title that I've now realized. If you're going to do a podcast, surely "When Narratively Appropriate" is a great title for a podcast.
It is. Run with
And
it.
just
Run with
destroyed-
it.
Just destroyed any prospect that Thomas may have free time for the next 3 years.
Yes. Well, look,
You can-
you know,
you can-
I tried, not that I'm complaining, but I suggested to my One Ring players that we could play something else, and I was told that wasn't happening. So now I am basically committed to running the One Ring for the rest of my life. Because at the rate we're getting through the campaign, I will be dead before the campaign is over.
I
All right.
suppose it's a
But
compliment
we
of sorts.
love it so much.
Yes.
Yeah.
Please, forever GM, could you just keep on playing this game, GMing this game? That'd be great. No, it's a great system though, so I'm not really complaining. All right. Okay, so when narratively appropriate, random and unexpected slapstick comedy. Anything else from anyone else? Ross, any burning urge? Anything you could bring from Europe to our attention that you think might be particularly appropriate for inclusion? No?
Well, it'd be good to maybe. I mean, I'd be interested. I mean, maybe just to. This game is obviously based in reality in terms of there's a realistic sort of edge to it in terms of the personas. Do we have any ideas where we want these people to live? I mean, is there a UK? I mean, I'm completely open. I'm not. So to answer your question, Thomas, no, I don't have anything.
We do go through that in a second as we do the persona
Okay.
creation. So this is effectively session 0. So
Yeah.
we actually go through the whole design of your personas, and then we choose paragons. And if we get enough time, we might even fight something. But chances are we'll get to the end of persona and paragon selection, and that'll be the end of the session tonight.
All right, nothing else to add in that case.
Okay. Jess has disappeared. So Dave.
Sorry, I was just grabbing my cup of tea,
No, you're all good.
which is
I
sticking
understand.
beside me.
Dave.
I didn't have anything in mind initially, but thinking back with the Warhammer comparison, I think one of the great unhailed heroes of Warhammer is actually food. Food and architecture are both big things in Warhammer, and they don't get called out often enough.
Okay. Well, I'm a fan of both food and architecture, as it turns out. So I will be very happy to include food and
Damn it,
architecture.
I've played into his hands again.
Particularly food.
I knew I should have said something like econometric.
I'm not
No,
against
please don't.
econometrics. I'm not against it.
You've got 2 weeks to get a master's.
That's right. I have high X road to serfdom somewhere. I can make lies of truths with the best of them. Jess, anything that you would like to particularly see in the game?
Well, years ago, I was thinking about running a city campaign, but with an actual kind of more realistic medieval city feel to it.
Yeah.
And kind of emphasizing a bit more like the religious life, because I feel like a lot of the fantasy role-playing games is like the religion is very just kind of like paper thin. So I don't know, like there was something I read about how they would often have the gates of the city painted like with religious scenes or on the walls of the city, and people go there and like pray and stuff. And I always thought, wouldn't it be interesting if like there was that kind of element, you could go and pray and there would be like a bonus or something if you did that. I don't
So
know.
similar to
But
Coriolis,
if
which
that fits
obviously
it
has a
all with
mechanic
it.
for prayer, where you actually get rewarded.
Yeah.
if you
Oh
turn
yeah,
pray.
of course. Like Coriolis did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where prayer actually matters because the gods do actually listen. Or do they? Anyway,
Yeah.
something happens when you pray. You don't know if it's a god.
Yeah.
People tell you it is, but are they telling the truth? Probably not. Actually, I explicitly know they're probably not because I've read the 3rd expansion now. So anyway, I should note, is everyone comfortable if we include an element of religious and city life in the campaign? Yeah. Obviously, it will not probably directly refer to a real world religion, just for a whole stack of self-evident reasons.
Well, I think we're going to have a god binder. It's a gods of some sort are necessary.
Yeah, don't forget the first line of the god binder. God binders don't believe in God; they just make deals. With
Yeah.
That's very close to a lot of religious practice.
yeah, I quote, if I may quote, I believe is it Matt Smith from the I think it's Matt Smith from the you know, if we'll keep on doing what Jesus wants as long as he gives us everything we want.
Yeah.
All right. So on that note, we are ready to roll on into persona creation. Okay, so the way persona creation works is it's pretty freeformy. In roll. Oh, hello. Good night. Night. Love you. Right. Drive by. Hug. Excellent. So in Ruth, I have added a persona notes thing. So I now need to give it to each of you. Is everyone here? Yep, everyone is here. So that's one for you. And then there's this one, which I will give to you. Yeah, they should be appearing now. And this one goes to Ross. And then finally, certainly not, well, second finally, this one goes to Shah. All right, so you should now all have Die persona notes as a sheet. Is that correct? Okay, so what I'm going to do.
How do I? Right.
Are you good?
I've got. No, I can't tell which one is mine.
There should only
I think because I opened one by myself while I was mucking around.
Okay. Oh, yes, you have 2. That's fine. You can just use whichever one you have. I don't care.
Okay.
Does
I just
not
use
matter.
one and just do it. And then
Just-
I delete the other one. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay, so the background. You used to all play fantasy role-playing games together as teenagers at school. Now, years down the line, for various reasons, you're all back in town for a school reunion. And you have decided to get together to play a game for old sake. All players should feel free to ask each other further questions. Now, this is the base definition. There's a couple of additional options you could explore. All are ultimately dependent on you having some previous relationship. So let me just kind of give you a couple of other options you might want to think about. So one was you all used to work on a online role-playing game or like a video role-playing game, and something went horribly wrong with that game. It crashed and burnt, and now several years later, you've all ended up back together for some reason. The other one is you all used to be part of a comic writing firm, and you're at like a Comic-Con or something. You've turned up all for different firms, and once again, something's gone very wrong. Needless to say, this is the fundamental thing. You used to work on one of those, and I'm giving this as an option. You used to be like the people who did Has everyone watched the YouTube sort of series like the Gamers, Dork Quest, Darkness Rising?
Mm.
Am I ringing any
Oh,
bells?
no. Yeah.
Okay. First of all, it's hilarious to watch. I
Mm.
strongly suggest you, if you have not watched Darkness Rising, you should go find Darkness Rising and watch it because it's pretty damn funny. Particularly the one where the bard realizes that he's just bought 50 character sheets of his bard, and so he throws himself in front of the evil villain, and it's just a pile of bodies piling up in front, and then every time he does
All
it,
bard.
he just gives his new character sheet to the GM, and it's the same bard that he just died as. So it's pretty funny. I've had those experiences, so I find that mildly humorous. So so those are the sorts of things you could do. The default setting is you used to play a role-playing game together, and here we find ourselves. Does anyone have any specific preference or ideas?
Oh, the game developers that it went badly wrong and crash and burn sounds so much fun.
I'm with Sharon there. I think I used to work in the video games industry, so I'm sort of it sounds like maybe a bit too close to life, but I like that idea because it ties in concepts around business going wrong, capitalism, venture capitalism going wrong, and people knifing each other in the back. I'm there for that.
Okay. Dave and Jess, are you happy to be ex-members of an indie startup video company that all went wrong, either just before or just after your first big release?
Yeah, that sounds
Yeah,
fine.
sounds good.
So it's the sort of story where, and we'll run through a bunch of questions, but were you, to get your creative juices thinking, it's things like, were you a startup that never got off the ground? So you had a great idea and you just couldn't get financing, and so you worked out your lies for a year. There was no money. You all lived on noodles, and then at the end of it, nothing happened, and you went on your various ways. Were you actually kind of successful? So you got that first round of funding, and then you fucked it against the wall because you didn't know what you were doing. So you're just badly organized. You had a whole stack of money, and then you delivered nothing. So not only did the video game not go out, but actually the investors came after you. Oh, Kickstarter. No, Kickstarter. That's got to be the answer. And now you've been hounded for 7 years by angry Kickstarter funders who just write you nasty things all the time.
Yeah, because
and
somebody in the company absconded with half the funds and didn't leave enough to the actual development.
And someone was buying, I was watching the last season of Mythic Quest, so I've got some ideas about what the game development
massive scope creep is that's always the thing.
Yeah.
Ross, is it all?
Yeah,
it's all ringing bells.
The whole we got way more thunder.
I like the idea of absolute vaporware that we created to get more funding, and it was just basically sort of complete marketing videos that we put together, and the product actually never even came close to actually even looking like that, and all falling apart. I've lived that experience some other ways, but anyway, I'll try not to make it too traumatic. I'm sorry.
Who hasn't been, that person? Let me find. It's development hell. Yeah, you're an indie game team working. Yep. Okay, so the persona options before you, and happy to, and by the way, feel free to challenge all of these. But the design lead and the QA. So it's two roles, design lead and QA. So tester in my old school world, and the QA role, and design lead, the visionary.
Yeah.
The star coder. So Poppy from Mythic Quest would have to be the reference analog for me. Marketing. So the person responsible for getting the narrative out there, getting the story out there. By the way, the creative lead is me, because that's the bad guy of the story. So just so you're aware. So they suggest if you've got 4 players, add marketing, but the 5th player option is an intern. So we could dump marketing, or marketing could be someone who doesn't turn up for this reconnection.
I
So
like that idea because I don't know if you've ever read the script for Time Bandits.
I have not read the script. I've watched the movie, but I've not read the script.
There are 7 dwarves referenced in the script, and one of them just doesn't show up. They've got lines for him and everything, but he doesn't show up. And I'm just thinking, like, you could have the marketing guy, and it's a recurring thing. Like, the marketing guy never came to the meetings when we were running the show, and that's why we flopped. And he's been invited to come to this game, and he's just not shown up.
Yeah.
I
I like the idea. I like the idea of it actually being an okay product or an okay game, but then the marketing doing something so terrible it got the whole thing cancelled. Something along those lines, and that's why we can keep on referring them. I like that. I love that idea, Dave. I think
I'm not going to lie. I'm now tempted by a Kevin Spacey sort of. You know how everyone now uses Jeff Goldblum to advertise everything in the nerd sphere, right? Like the magic dust is you get Jeff Goldblum. It's 12 years ago, and Kevin Spacey is the guy not even 12 years ago. It's like 6 years ago, and Kevin Spacey is the guy that you've brought on board to advertise the game. It's cost you an absolute mozza of your money. Like, it's eaten into your budget massively. And then 2 minutes before midnight, or 2 minutes after midnight, even more effectively, of course, the charges start to drop against Kevin Spacey, and all of that money's gone, and it tanks the game because now you're permanently associated as a group with Kevin Spacey.
And also the main NPC in the game is voiced by Kevin Spacey.
And the main character was a PC based on Kevin Spacey.
In hindsight, the dialogue is quite soft.
Yeah, his dialect is like, I saw his dialogue is really, he's referencing things in real life.
But it'll be really good for a sense of reality for the game.
Yeah.
All right, so the question you need to ask yourselves is, who wants to be the design lead? Who wants to be the quality assurance person? Who wants to be the star coder? And apparently, who wants to be the intern? Although,
I want to be the intern. I want to be the intern.
All right, so Jess is putting their hand up for the intern. I feel like not picking on Ross, because of his background. Mind you, Shah and my backgrounds are not that dissimilar that we don't recognise any of these characters. Dave, who calls you, buddy? Is it design lead, quality assurance, or star coder?
I think star coder.
Star coder. Nice.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm happy to be the QA.
QA. Ross, you want to be QA?
QA is way too close to my actual real life.
Oh, good. Okay. So I'm happy to. To be honest, I'm terrible. I'm a terrible tester. I'm the worst tester in reality. But anyway, I'm happy to be the QA.
I break everything. They think I'm
fantastic.
cursed. They've actually threatened to put a witch doctor in the budget for this year because of the number of times I break the software.
Okay, so that, Shah, leaves you with design lead.
Okay.
You're not the creative director, who's the true visionary, of course. You are the person who takes the creative director's vision and implements it.
And attempts to make Kevin Spacey engaging as a main character of a video game.
Correct.
We're going well.
And there's some suggestion that maybe it was the creative director's idea that Kevin Spacey be included, which is why none of you have ever talked to the creative director since that day when the game was going to be released and then it tanked. All right, so first question. Everyone, feel free to pitch in. What was the genre of the game?
I think maybe a police procedural.
Very Kevin Spacey-esque.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was thinking. Sorry, Dave. I was thinking kind of film noir detective type.
Yeah.
You know, Kevin Spacey as Sam Spade type kind of carry on.
But that would tie in with the cringy dialogue.
Yeah,
It only became
yeah,
apparent just how cringy it was when the hammer dropped.
Everything is a pun.
Mm. We
just
didn't
put your lips,
realize it at the time.
just put your lips together and blow.
Okay. Yes, cringy dialogue has now been added as a note, as well as film noir. So it was a film noir game. What were some of the really big bugs that either weren't conquered or were really hard to conquer in the game? What kept on sort of getting in the way?
Let's just say the lighting, the film noir. What did it call the lighting? The Chiracusa, whatever that lighting, the sort of like that.
Chiaroscuro.
Yeah, thanks to say that lighting kept on going. The way that we built that engine kept on screwing everything up.
And what was the name of the lighting? Sorry, Dave.
Chiaroscuro. It's ChiaroScuro. I think is what I'm thinking of.
Hell Obscure.
So that's that like the black and white lighting, through Venetian blinds that hits people's faces and creates all that mood.
All right.
We couldn't crack it.
No matter how hard you tried, it fritzed. Like the graphics, and they'd get weirdly styrated
Exactly.
or something.
Yeah.
Or, yeah.
And the dialogue was so cringy and so bad that the voice acting budget just completely blew out, because no matter how professional the voice actor, they'd lose it at least twice a take.
Okay.
Toast of London.
So cringy voice as a result of bad dialogue. And when we say cringy with the dialogue, we're talking like, I saw her walk into the room. She was a dame. That sort of dialogue. Like, are we talking sort of, that sort
stuck
of
to her neck.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
In any other lighting, she would have been a 5, but in this room, she was a 9.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Like every kind of stereotype that you've ever taken from film noir just ramped up to
ramped up. Okay, dialogue, and we are good with bad dialogue. All right. So we've already determined that the real issue here was that someone took half the budget and spent it on Kevin Spacey. But what, if any, other holds up in development occurred? Jess, have you got any thoughts here? What might have been something that was holding up development?
I think there's definitely got to have been like interpersonal conflict within the company. Like somebody has just flounced at the last minute, and we've all been left kind of like scrambling. And probably me as the intern, I probably got handed something that was way beyond my capability because there was nobody else left to do it.
Well, the lead writer, obviously.
Yes, that's right. Because that's why I joined the company, is because I want to be a writer. And so now I've been left writing it. It's like a 21-year-old.
So the lead writer, who was originally responsible for the script but left suddenly, possibly because the creative director was insisting on overriding all of their decisions, which could explain the bad dialogue. So, Jess, when you became the lead writer, intern to lead writer, what was that like for you? Did the creative director, having realized their mistake, leave you alone, or did they eternally kind of dispute everything you did?
Well, I think because I was very young and naive, and I was just like writing nonsense because I had no idea what I was doing, I'd have like the creative like helping all day long.
Okay, so he was helping you.
I was just parenting.
He was helping you, not hindering you. That's your perception of that relationship, was that
he was helping me, but really, like, no.
But your perception is he was helping. Because the leader writer quit. Okay, well, so then sort of the next question is, so whose fault was it that the lead writer quit? Shah.
I think it would totally have been my fault, actually. Getting in a
Okay.
little argument over the kind of direction they wanted the scene to go, and us going, well, we actually have to animate that and model it and actually make it work, and you're just asking weird shit.
Okay, so the design lead was directly responsible.
Yeah, wait, that's
Is that
not
what everyone
possible.
else? Just a quick question, and I'll ask it of quality assurance. Quality assurance. What was do you think, was it the design lead's fault that the writer quit? Like, where do you, A, are you aware? And B, where do you stand on this question?
I think I think the thing is that the lead writer and the creative director saw the whole game in terms of classic 1940s Hollywood movies and kept on referencing really obscure. This is a bit like that Billy Wilder movie from 1941 called The Curse of the Black Cat. Let's sit down for 3 hours and watch that and make the scene exactly like that scene from that movie. And Sharon, as design lead, was like, that makes no sense from a gaming perspective. And then because it made no sense from a gaming perspective, it would make no sense from a QA perspective either.
Okay. Okay. So just no, hold on. Star Coder, why did you take this job? Why were you there, Star Coder? What brought you to that space?
I think I needed to be there. Maybe an immigration thing. Maybe I was fresh out of university, and if I wanted to stay in the country, I had to have a job, and it was the first coding job that I could find that would keep me in the country. And that's probably why I'm upset with everyone else, is because when it all fell apart, I had to leave.
Oh, nice.
Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. That's great. Okay, so you were fresh out of university. You needed the job to stay in country. And then when the whole thing fell apart, you were basically ejected from the country.
Yeah.
And so you had to then go through the whole process of applying for a working visa and all of that sort of noise.
All over again. And I'm back and I'm not happy.
Okay. You were sent overseas. Okay, cool. All right. So then the next question is, what was your opinion of the creative director? And I'm going to ask each of you this question because it's kind of material. So, intern. Well, actually, sorry, no, intern. We know what you thought of the creative director. You thought he was really helpful. He was like an inspiring leader who was sort of stepped in at the last moment to save you. Ross or QA, what did you think of the creative director?
An egomaniac and a spoofer.
And a what?
So that might be an Irish phrase. A spoofer is someone who is so an egomaniac, but then it's someone who's like, how would you translate it? How would you translate a spoofer? It's someone who's completely sort of a legend in the old lunchbox. And there's nothing behind it.
Yeah.
Big jam.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. All right. So not a fan, thought he was full of himself, and actually had nothing in the tank.
Nothing behind it.
Yeah. Just another marketing guy. Marketecture, my favorite thing. All right. What about you, old design lead, what did you think, having gotten the lead writer fired in this conflict? How did you and Mr. Creative Director wash out of this debacle?
Yeah, not good. He's a bit of a fantasist, so he like has these big dreams and sees them all happening, but the reality is just completely different. So
Okay.
yeah.
So nothing practical is
Yeah,
that?
yeah, nothing practical, and even if something obviously wrong happens right in front of him, he's like doesn't see it. It's like, no, my vision is coming true.
All right. So blind to the realities of the world. Okay.
This looks fantastic. Keep going.
Yeah, and you're like, it's not freaking working. It's not freaking working. It's not freaking working. All right. Hold on. Did we get everyone? Oh no, sorry. Star Coder, what did you think of the creative director?
I think his creativity is impressive. He just can't communicate any of it. It's one thing to have the vision, but yeah, not being able to get it across.
Okay.
And probably at first, I probably thought it was a problem with me, with language and culture. And it turns out, no, the creative director just can't communicate.
Okay. Okay, so I think we've kind of got the answer to this question, but it's useful to just make sure we're all on the same page. So it actually talks about a classic game, but I think we can expand that concept. What's the inspiration the creative lead goes on and on about? So I'll just remind you that we already have the mention of the very old 40s movies that no one else had ever watched, in which they being the lead writer and the creative lead, would talk about endlessly. So we can settle on that, but if there's something else people might want to include, some other inspiration that the creative director relied upon.
I think maybe he didn't shut up about German expressionism.
That's what I was going to say. It's the exact same thing. That's the direct lead. If you mention the cabinet of Dr. Caligari one more time,
yeah.
Yeah.
Not Murnau again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. The cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which I have actually seen turned into a module. So, okay. And or Walter Murnau. Nice. Okay. All right. Yep. Okay. So German. What was that? What is that? German
expressionism.
German expressionism. Okay.
Just on that note, not related to the game. Apparently, Willem Dafoe is starring in a remake of Nosferatu.
No, I've watched it. It's great.
No. He's starring in a remake of Nosferatu. I'm not talking about Shadow of the Vampire.
Oh.
There's actually a remake of Nosferatu in which he will be playing Count Orlok for real, as opposed to the actor who was playing Count Orlok.
But in Shadow of the Vampire, he is Count Orlok, who is actually Count Orlok, because he's pretending
to be an actor playing Count Orlok.
That's right, pretending to be an actor. It's a great movie.
It is.
This almost sounds like this RPG. Meta, layers upon layers.
It's layers upon layers. All right. So I think we've worked this out. So you're all sort of there. You're about a year late on the Kickstarter.
Yeah, that all.
Maybe 2, maybe 3. Fair point. So actually, this is a fair question. How many years late on the Kickstarter are you? And I think this question should go to QA. who's always blamed for why it's late.
Yeah.
Because it's
It
your
just isn't
goddamn,
working.
because your
Too many.
bugs, because you keep
Yeah.
on reporting bugs. Otherwise, it had gone out. So, noting that the lead developer has it's, how many years since it was meant to go live is it, Ross?
I think I'm going to say 3 years.
3 years. All right.
Yeah.
So just
I
long
think-
enough for the guy to get booted from the country, go through the 12-month process
Yeah.
of getting his visa reactivated and getting back into the country for like 6 months.
So, some angry email, lots of angry emails. Where is it? It's gone silent. Yeah.
All right. And just because I've watched Mythic Quest, is there a community who is responsible for the Kickstarter community comms?
The
That
intern.
would be the intern, I think.
Oh yeah, I was going to say totally me. Totally me.
All right. So
We've already
we are
established the absent marketing manager. So
so we're 3 years late, and the intern has been left answering all the angry messages on Kickstarter that you still get even to this day, 3 years later, because some people never let go. All right. One last final question. Is the game actually written in a way that could be launched? So in other words, was the whole Kevin Spacey debacle the reason why the game didn't go live? Or is there or is the game itself actually unlaunchable and it's kind of the lie you tell yourselves as to why it didn't go live? Do you know what I mean? Like, a convenient reason for failing, if you put it that way. And I'm going to ask that question of the Star Developer, I think. Star Developer, was the game ready to go live in reality, or was it all a bit shit? And if it was shit, how shit?
I think it's stuck in Steam Early Access hell. So we're still getting people signing up to essentially to pay to be beta testers.
Right.
And just not getting anywhere.
Yeah. And just as a small side note, are the people you're getting signed up, are they the sort of people who think Kevin Spacey didn't do anything wrong? And maybe they talk about that a lot.
It's all a conspiracy. I love it.
So are there?
We love you, 4chan. We love you.
That's right. So it's in development hell. It's in early access, beta. Oh no, alpha. Sorry, beta was a bit ambitious. Alpha release. And I was actually asking a question. Sorry. And is there, like, a lot of those beta testers? Might there also be an intersection in the Venn between that and people who think Kevin Spacey wasn't guilty at all and was actually,
inevitably.
Yeah.
They think
Okay,
that he's secretly fighting the elitist powers.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah.
why he's gone underground.
Beta testers who think Kevin Spacey is okay, which of course is actually more problematic for you, because every time you try and say, but we didn't know that Kevin Spacey was actually doing these horrible things and it was all a terrible mistake, instantly you've got this whole crowd of people who are actually beta testing your game, sort of talking about how Kevin Spacey was maligned and wrongly accused.
I have to, actually, just as an aside, my brother-in-law, who's Italian, was in Turin over Christmas, and he sat next to Kevin Spacey in the restaurant, and Kevin Spacey was there, and Kevin Spacey was all over the Italian press. He went to a Turin football game. He was holding the jersey. The Italians seem to have completely forgotten that he's a very dubious individual. So in some weird Italian alternate reality, nothing's ever happened. So
Is the
He's
one
still-
country that the game is doing okay Italy?
initially,
Why not? Yeah.
very popular initially.
But you don't have an Italian language pack, so it's It's confusing as hell.
Yeah.
All right. I'm personally loving the idea of the one place that it's doing well is Italy. Italians
We're
love
world
the
famous
game.
in Poland.
What was that?
To pull a Mel Brooks one, we're world famous in Poland.
Yes. Okay, so now direct questions. Oh, and by the way, we don't have names for your personas. So can we get a name for your people? And now that you've had a bit of a, getting into the vibe of your character, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about your character, and then I'm going to ask you to describe your character. So be ready. And unfortunately, Shah, I'm not going to give you much time because you're first.
Oh,
But you can come last with the description of your character if you want. Okay. What are your influences as a designer, Shah? What are your influences?
I think one of those people that grew up on the kind of classic comic books and is still kind of stuck in that video game world that has that visual aesthetic.
So you wanted to make a noir procedural investigation game. What's the name of that? Is it Max Payne? Is it Max Payne where the guy's running around as sort of this Cthulhu-esque sort of setting and it's all black and white sort of thing?
That's Alan Wake.
Adam Wake, right.
Alan Wake is the
Alan
I
Wake.
don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but then your lead designer has a comic book design aesthetic. Am I the only one who can see there might have been
Yeah, totally.
some issues in bringing those two things together? It's like Roger Rabbit. All right. So big influence on you was comic books and comic book art and that kind of biff, pow, bang sort of scene. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
The hiring decisions at this company are really bad. Just throwing that out there.
Okay. I guess one question for all of you is like, are you still living on noodles, desperately trying to get this game to work and you've not accepted other work? Or are you freelancing / contracting
I'm
to make ends
freelancing.
meet? You're the intern. That was almost all right. So design lead, are you, you're all still pulling for the game. This is your commitment, your promise to each other, but have you secretly been taking work on the side? And how much of your time are you spending on that work, design lead?
Oh, yeah, totally. And most of it.
Right. So it's like 90%, 10%. And let's just be clear, the 10% is probably shrinking all the time.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So, who are you jealous of on the team, design lead? And by the way, people can pitch in. I should have made that clear. Sorry. So if other people have ideas for suggestions, feel free to toss them into the pot, as it were.
I think I'm actually jealous of the intern because their input is actually valued by the creative director. I might think he's a blowhard, but he actually listens to the intern.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So you don't rate him. You think he's just, effectively he's got no real world thing, but he's still the creative director, goddammit, and he's still sitting there at the top of that totem. Okay. Star coder. And remember, I'll ask you to come up with names and sort of background, like who are you? You solved a huge technical issue that was holding up the game at one point while you were still there, probably just before you found out you were headed back overseas because they said they weren't going to keep on employing you. Maybe it was the last thing you did. That would be gold standard. What was it?
Maybe it was an issue with mocap with the characters. We had no way to to code all the characters in time. So maybe I don't know. I hired someone of a somewhat dubious background to act as the model for the mocap, and it got taken as consorting with a criminal, which put the nail in my coffin, so to speak. So just some guy I met at the pub that's like, "Hey, dude, do you want to do some mocap work?" And it turned out that he was, I don't know, selling drugs or what have you. I just thought it'd be fun for a lark, and we got busted while we were doing the mocap.
So noting that you've come back into country, if you were fired for it, but you weren't actually accused of a crime per se, you were just fired for it.
No, I was just fired for it and then lost my. It wasn't like I was deliberately going out and finding a guy who had several ounces of cocaine on him to do the mocap. It was just sort of I picked the wrong person to solve the right problem. And it was easier to just fire me. And that was when it all came tumbling down. Like, I no longer have a job. I have to leave the country. No charges were laid. So there's no smear on my official record. But yeah, I had to go from back from the start to do my skilled migrant visa all over again.
And now that you're back in country, by the way, who are you working for? Because are you?
I think I've got a shitty database administrator job.
Nice.
And I'm still hanging on to the project. Because my DBA job is so creatively unsatisfying.
Yeah. So that means that having let go of all of their other developers and you being the one person who's willing to work on the game, even though they fired you 3 years ago and set your life into hell spell, you've come back to working on the game because your DBA role at Charcoal Chicken, this is a real story. I know someone who used to be the developer for Kingsley's Chicken. So you've ended up.
That's almost a badge of pride, really.
Well, it is in Canberra. I mean, it's not really anywhere else.
Yeah,
yeah. Well, yeah. So all right. So cool. So you're working as a DBA for Barbecue Chicken, and you are working on this game because it's your only creative outlet for proper coding, even though they fucked you up so badly. Yeah, nice.
And I want it on my resume because then I can actually get proper coding jobs doing games.
Okay, so that then leads to the question: who is holding that particular bladed instrument over your head? Then,
as in,
well, I mean, someone's not given you a reference yet. So who's not giving you a reference yet?
I think probably the creative director has promised it.
Yeah.
And yeah, hasn't come through with it yet. But even if they had, it's not a finished project, so it doesn't really mean anything. It's not until we actually get the product out the door that I can say, yes, I worked on whatever it was.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's just another failed Kickstarter, another failed Steam Early Access project.
Dude, you've got to come across to consulting where we just claim every project was a massive success, whether it landed or not. Okay.
That's how you define success.
It is all about how you define success. So finally then, and very quick, this one maybe reasonably quickly, who do you have a tendency to condescend to? So you're this like genius programmer trapped in this DBA role. But who do you condescend to on the team? Who cops your...
I think it's QA.
It's QA,
QA doesn't understand how much work goes into these things.
No.
They don't understand the challenges, the technical challenges to bring this vision to life.
If you hit my
code
with
nitpicky bug reports, like you don't appreciate that taken me weeks to fix the last one, and you've got like 3 more, and you want them fixed now.
God, I'm having work flashbacks. Stop it. Stop it.
Oh.
Okay, so then over to QA. Many people move into QA just to get into the industry because, testers. And then they have this goal of moving to some other part of the design of the company, some other role. So I guess there's a two-parter. One, is that you? Are you one of those people? All right. So you want to get out of QA.
Yeah.
All
and
right.
I can't get out of QA because I have no talent for anything else.
Right. But what role has the creative director promised you?
Design lead.
All right. Well, you have noticed the creative director and the design lead don't get on, so there's obviously opportunity there. Yeah. The design lead doesn't understand the creative vision.
And also, I would say my character is delusional in the sense that they don't have the skills to be a design lead.
No,
they think they do.
But they are absolutely certain they do. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. You personally found a major flaw with the game. So what was it? And did you tell anyone? Because when I read the question they've written, it's a very optimistic view of what QA people do sometimes.
Yeah.
So I'm refining this question to be more like my lived experience of the fundamental question.
Maybe I'll put this one out, and it'd be good to get the star code on Dave's view on this, but I've discovered that we've used a particular third-party engine to create some of the graphics, and we don't have a license for that engine. And we don't have the money to pay for it either.
But it's right there in the code.
It's right there in the code.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, it's referencing those libraries or whatever.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So have you told anyone then?
No, I'm keeping it because I want to use it for.
Right. Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay. All right. And Starcoder, are you the one that brought this set of libraries into the game?
I think it was probably something I went, okay, well, I'll just rewrite my own library later, and forgot about totally, plunged it together to show, hey, this is proof of concept, and then totally forgot. Until, I don't know, maybe one of the fans brought it up. They paid for their early access and decided to pull apart the code and went, this looks familiar.
Okay. All right. So it's not a secret that I think the way we'll play it is no one but the tester knows, and the star developer has forgotten they did it because it happened 3 years ago before they were kicked out of the country. And you found it since, and it's just this hanging blade you're waiting to drop on someone.
Yeah.
Right when the star coder thinks he's, and particularly noting the star coder.
You people think you're so amazing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. All right. How do you feel about finding problems? Quality assurance. Do you love it? Does it bring joy to your heart?
Again, there's a power dynamic. I love it.
Yeah, he loves it.
Yeah. And again, not a creative person, is quite pedantic and is actively seeking. It's a control thing, actively seeking problems to make them into a bit of a power play.
Okay. So I'm just going to ask the group a question, and I will be seeking your opinion quite strongly, noting that we haven't talked to the intern yet. Does everyone think the tester should be the dictator? Because I think the tester should be the dictator.
I was really hoping it wasn't going to be me. Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Anyway, all right. Well, if you don't want to be if you don't want to be the dictator, you
No,
don't have to be. But
in typical dictator fashion, y- if you throw this crown onto my head, I reluctantly accept.
it's the passive aggressive nature of your character that is really what I'm drawing upon. It's like I don't really like my job, but I love the power that it gives me. I don't. I found this really big problem in the code, but I haven't told anyone yet. But one day I'll be able to use it to get exactly what I want. And that design lead, she's shit at her job. Everyone knows that. That's why I should be doing it.
I could do it.
I could do it. Yeah. No, all right. So on that note then, final note, who causes you most of your problems? Who do you blame for the problems you find in the code? In the game, not just the code. Sorry, in the game.
In the game,
because you're quality assurance. You've got a bigger remit than just testing code, mate.
I would say
you are the you're the fundamental checksum on the quality of the game.
Because my character thinks they're better than everybody else in the team and thinks they're the most skillful person. But again, I would probably think it all stems from the maligned vision of the design lead. Sorry, Sharon. And I want your job, so I've justified it to myself.
Right.
All
right. So then finally, intern. How did you get your job in the company? What did you do? How did you get your job? We already know the answer. You're not qualified to be lead writer. You've self-admitted that. But how did you get your job in the company?
So, just so you know, my name's Aggie, and I was named after Agatha Christie because that was my mother's favorite author, and she's totally obsessed with Agatha Christie murder mysteries.
Okay, all right, lovely.
So I've grown up like steeped in murder mysteries. I'm an English lit major, but could never admit that was actually my true passion in life was murder mysteries.
Okay.
It's two genre.
Yeah.
So obviously this little indie company came to my university like for one of the work fairs where they were like
career day,
advertising the internship. Come and
career day.
Career day, come and get some work experience.
Yeah.
And I kind of like came and sold myself with all my knowledge about like murder mysteries and my English skills, and I'm like, I want to be a writer. Yeah.
So
I got it through.
You actually got it legitimately through your skills. Oh, we've lost Jess, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, yep, there she is. Yep, cool.
It's just that I'm really young and really inexperienced and really naive.
Right. So you could actually be quite a good writer at some point in the future.
Talented but not yet skilled.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, dealing with a child in the background.
No, that's cool. There's a reason.
Of course. Now that I can only work very, very, very part-time on answering all the Kickstarter emails, I've been doing some freelance writing work for like gaming websites, like doing some reviews and writing some articles and clickbait and stuff like that. And of course, I'm also working on my first novel, which is a murder mystery set in a games development company.
Nice. And are all of the characters in the novel vaguely reminiscent of the people that you actually work with?
Vaguely. I don't have enough skill to vaguely. No, they're complete copies. Like they're complete really copies. Obvious.
Really beautiful. Yeah, nice. Okay. There's a reason why you shouldn't be working here. What is it? So actually better question. Is there a reason why you shouldn't be working here?
Oh, isn't there? don't know. I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Okay, no, that's fine. You've got legitimate reason for being here. You are actually, whilst very junior, if you'd been the sub-writer below the sub-writer below the sub-writer writing something, you would have been fine.
Yeah.
Not the lead writer for the entire game, but you know, that's where it rolls.
Yeah.
You have epically fucked up once though. Like completely epically fucked up. And someone else ended up copping the blame for it. What was the epic fuck up that you did, and who took the blame?
Oh.
If you can't think of anything else, maybe you recommended the guy that I met at the pub with some uni friend of yours.
Yeah, I think that might be it actually. It was like, I was like, come to the pub with me. Like, we're gonna meet up with some of my old friends.
Including the one that sold you marijuana like all the time.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay, so now I'm going to go around and ask you to give a name and a short description of your persona. Sharon. Shara. Shah. What are we calling ourselves today?
Kit, I think, kind of a very androgynous look. Female, but tends to lean towards she, they rather than she, her. Just kind of your usual small, mousy kind of looking person. It's really kind of not what you expect in these kind of roles. The design leads are usually kind of more overtly creative, but no. Just kind of a person you would like walk past and not think anything of.
Okay, so kind of a bit of an androgynous look. She, they, and Kit. And what sort of clothes do they actually wear on a day-to-day basis? Like, what's their base wardrobe look like?
Just very, very nondescript. So, like basic joggers, basic jeans, basic t-shirt. Like nothing about them would stand out anywhere.
Okay. All right. Dave, programming star.
Yes. Rafi, or if you want him to do something, Raphael.
Yep.
He's Filipino. He wears short sleeve shirt and a tie, and unfortunately gets mistaken for a Mormon missionary as a result.
Yep.
And tends to be very intense and speaks very quickly under stress, which is being a coder is pretty much whenever he's away.
And when he gets shouty, does he shout in English or does he shout in Tagalog? Tagalog, sorry. Does he shout in Tagalog? Does he shout in Spanish? Does he shout in English? Does he shout in all three? Like, when he gets shouty, what does that sound like?
I think when he gets shouty, he hits in English, but he slows down. Paradoxically, because he wants to make sure that everyone understands him. Maybe he's a little self-conscious still.
Okay. So angry, he slows down, he speaks very slowly and very carefully at people.
And very clearly. And I suppose our QA guy might take that as a sign of aggression.
Or he might think you're trying to be nice because you're speaking for the first time slowly and clearly. But no, he hates you and you hate him, so that's unlikely to be the scenario. All right, so on that note then, QA guy. What is QA guy?
His name's Josh Finley, or Finlay.
Yeah.
And sorry, anybody called Josh. He's very white, English, sort of like medium height, and he's probably he's probably older than everybody else. He's probably like, I'm not sure what age people are, but for a young sort of dynamic team, he's probably 10 years older.
Yeah.
But he dresses completely 90s hip hop style as a white guy. So he's sort of he's basically Steve Buscemi, Hello Fellow Kids meme, you know. So he thinks he's keeping it real, but it's in his mind. What that is really sort of not kind of on. Oh, it's not like spot on. It's completely inauthentic, and it's what he thinks was like authentic 90s hip hop or something, and it's all a bit off.
Okay.
Sorry.
It's a mental image I'm struggling with even as we speak. All right, and then finally, intern. We know you're Aggie, so we know Agatha.
Yeah.
Aggie, what do you look like though?
I'm trying desperately hard to create the aura and image of being a writer, especially now that I've been launched as lead writer without like any skills.
Yeah.
And of course, I've taken my inspiration from Agatha Christie. So I'm going for the shirts and the long cardigans and the, little glasses and the little hat. I'm trying to carry around my notebook with me everywhere.
So are you sort of early 1920s, long cardigan, little glasses, wandering around?
Yeah.
But you're not like a flapper. You're kind of more.
No.
Right. And you're wearing a
like
hat.
a refugee.
What sort of hat do you wear?
Well, outside, of course, not in the.
Right, but what
I
sort
always
of hat
pick
do you
my
wear?
hat to wear when I go out.
But is it like a big broad brim thing, or is it a really small
No,
thing?
no. It's like a small little sheep hat.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. But you don't wear it inside?
No.
But what if you need to write?
Oh, well, then I'll go for a little walk down the road to the cafe and I'll make sure I wear my hat.
Okay, so you don't wear the hat while writing, but you will frequently be seen going down to the cafe to get coffee for inspiration purposes.
Yeah.
And when questioned
because
about
all
the coffee...
good writers will be like going down to the bar or the cafe to write, be inspired and people watch.
So when you're challenged by anyone on your 15 coffee trips a day that you seem to undertake, the answer is, I'm looking for inspiration. I'm writing.
Yeah.
It's the pen, where's the paper? The QA guy does ask this question frequently, is my gut instinct call on that one. All right, so okay, so paragons. Okay, so they've got suggestions, but I actually am going to ignore them because I don't think they're right for the characters. So I'm going to stick with my first opinion, which is that their suggestion for the QA is actually not a bad one. I just feel like you're considering the way we talked about the dictator who really uses their powers a lot. It feels like the QA guy is going to be the guy that would just merrily wield these powers without restraint. But the other option is an emotion knight. So an emotion knight is a person who channels their emotion and can use it to like strike mighty blows, right? So they're not creative, they're just driven by their emotion. And it's sort of outwardly focused. So they do the emotion is their emotion, so they're not relying on others to feel that emotion, they feel it themselves. And that's the vigilance knight. So it's the one who's constantly watching and constantly looking. But I'm pretty keen on you being the dictator because everything you've said about your character just rings for the dictator.
I'm happy to. I'm happy to wear that mantle. So
thrust upon me though it was.
Exactly.
I accept. Right. Okay. So In which case, if everyone is okay, and I'm trying to find my pretty dice, so just give me 1 second. Just be right back. I put them away very simply. Yep, I do. Okay. I'll have to turn off my background for this because it screws up the image. No good at all. Okay. Come out, down spot, come out. Oh, yeah, that's perfect. All right. So, yeah, I will need to turn off my background. Okay, let me just do that for this bit. Choose virtual background. And the answer is I want cool. Okay, so can you see the dice? Good. All right. Let me go back to the rituals. We've done the personas. We've done that. Closing ritual. All right. Introduce die, again, distribute character sheets. Okay. Should give me, oh. I'm sorry, I'm not at the right point in the, we did all that, blah, 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 blah. Then make sure the players are okay with being persecuted by their GM. Yeah, got it. Okay, perfect. Okay, cool. Lots of questions during the break. Okay, so the dictator, diplomats, bards, those who like character manipulation and interaction, themes of dominion and power. A mature player who can be trusted to treat the darker possibilities of this class seriously. And for you, this is your die. There is no other die like this in the whole game. This is special. Use it well, dictator. That's you.
Four-sided.
All right. Next. The writer Aggie. Yeah. This is your die. This is exactly the same as every other die in the game. There is nothing special about this die at all. Use it, fool. So, Jess, you will be playing the fool.
The fool.
The fool, which I will grant you in a second. And this one I am going to flip around. Okay, so Dave, so this is your die. There is no other die like this in the whole game. This is special. This is yours. Use it well. Godbinder. And then oh, there it is right in front of me. This one I can't find it. Shah. This is your die. There is no other die like this in the whole game. This is special. This is yours. Use it well. Knight. Now, I have not chosen for you your emotional focus, either for the dictator or the knight, so you'll be able to choose that in a second. So what I'll now do is I'm going into roll, and I'm going to grant you all a character sheet based on what I just said. So first of all, the dictator, I am granting, as I said I would, to you, Ross. You should have the dictator now. The fool, I am granting to you, Jess. And the knight, I am granting to you charm. Confirmed. And then finally, but certainly not last, the Godbinder, who I am granting to you, Dave. Please confirm that you can see your character sheet.
I can't. I can still see only the first section. The first
Yeah,
section.
same here.
I had to go up to view user sheets next to the setting cog and hit that in order for them all to show down, and then it says you have 2 in there.
Oh, so you had to press the button up in the top.
Yeah.
Oh, I see it. Yep. Yep. Got it. Yeah.
Okay. Does that now work?
Yes.
Okay. So one really important thing is, whilst the first bit of the character sheets are exactly the same, the second bit of the character sheets are, in effect, completely different and unique to each class or paragon that you are playing. Okay. So what we're going to quickly do is just run through the base sort of creation of stats bit, and then it'll actually probably be time to stop for tonight, if that's okay. And what we'll do is I will invite you all to read your character sheets at your own leisure for the next session. And then we will be starting as soon as that comes around. Are people comfortable with that?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, first question for you all to think about, and you should have the sheets now open. Put your persona name against the sheet. So we're now playing as the personas. So this is important, right? So we're now role-playing as the personas. So I am playing the creative director. I have a character sheet. And the rest of you do too. So please, what is the name of your paragon? What great fantasy stylish or film noir, if that's your preference, style name are you going to give your character? Okay. Oops.
Right, so what are we doing? Because I just dropped out briefly.
I know you're good. It is a bit dodgy. I agree. Chiaroscuro. Okay, thank you for that, Dave. Thanks for tuning in. I was just saying, we're just going through your characters, your paragon sheets. So you're now playing your personas, and you're all just coming up with your characters, right? So
yeah,
as your persona, you are now making a paragon. So my first question to you was, what film noir / fantasy name are you putting against your character sheet? This does not have to be a hard question. It could be Martok the Hammer, or, you know, Sam Spade, for all I know. So I would not spend a lot of energy on the name. I would just jam something in. Because remember, you've got terrible writers and terrible dialogue. We've already established this quite strongly. Oh, sorry. Talented writers who don't have the experience to write well.
Yeah.
That's partially why it has to be something completely ridiculous and appropriate, though.
And appropriate. And appropriate. It's a tricky one.
Yeah. All right. It'll come to me in a second, I'm sure.
I got mine.
Cool. I'm going there. All right.
I go one.
Timothy. Tim, it's Tim the Godbinder.
Oh, we've got a long sword.
Well, or something else. It's up to you whether you've got a long sword.
So we are playing like in a fantasy world. It's
No, it's completely up to you. I'm tempted to yes, you're playing in a fantasy-esque setting, but I'm pretty inspired by the film noir thing. I think the dungeon, I think the setting is actually going to be some sort of weird pastiche of Rivers of London, sort of 1940s, sort of Los Angeles, sort of Chinatown kind of motif. So some really weird combo of all the cities that feature in those sort of classic crime dramas. And maybe
I've got to have a samurai sword.
a samurai sword. Okay.
And we're doing Chinatown. I'm having a samurai sword.
Now I am really, really glad that I went for an absolutely ridiculous medieval fantasy name because I think that's great.
So I'm seeing I have to come up with 20 realms. And I think what I'm going to do is each of the realms is going to be a different, like, sort of film noir / sort of classic sort of detective city, all with their own flavor of things.
Nice.
And I think I can even see what the monsters are going to be now based on that vision. Because it's going to be some combo of, the classic sort of, mafioso sort of wise guy types that feature so heavily in the 40s. But also, needless to say, Nazis.
Yes.
I was just thinking,
Well,
finally
yeah.
we get to play in a lot. Finally, we get to play in Los Angeles. A dream-inflicted hellscape.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, hold on, didn't we
wait a
agree
minute.
earlier it would only be dark fantasy, not not endless, unremitting horror? All right. So then, what you will note about, wow, yeah, I got things I got to do there. Is you have to spend your character points. So if we've gotten through, hold on, I'll just go to the right thing. So if you've gotten through that, you've got your class die there. Any other notes you want to add? So now, can you just very quickly for me just put your persona names in the video so I get everyone's persona name correct, and I will change my.
What was my die? Class die? I couldn't see it properly.
Yours was the die that is like every other. It was a D6.
Right.
Do you want our persona or our paragon?
Persona.
Persona.
Oh,
Just as an aside, Char, I actually have a friend that I'm playing the Between with in a regular campaign, and they're also hit AFAB non-binary. So it's just one of these weird things.
All right.
It's a very, very androgynous name. It could be Catherine. It could be Christopher.
It's true. It's true. All right. So we've got Rafi, Kit Tanner, Aggie, and Josh Finlay. All right. Perfect. So the sorry, I was going there and then I got distracted by making sure I wasn't going too far ahead. No, I don't want the faster. I want the faster. It is. All stats start at 2. So all of your stats, strength, dex, con, int, whiz, charisma, not that you've ever seen those before, start at 2. And then you get 2 points to assign to across that. So you can have 1 stat at 4 or 2 stats at 3. In answer to the obvious question, for the dictator, the key stat rather is charisma.
I'll just make that a 4.
Yep. Would expect no less of you. For the Godbinder, the key stats are con and wisdom. You don't have to put both at 3. You can make one 4 and the other, leave the other one at 2, but it's con and wisdom. We don't have one of them, so I can skip that one. For the Fool, it's dex and charisma. So that's you, Aggie. And then for the Emotion Knight, it's strength and con, because you are a combat machine. Okay, has everyone updated their stats?
Having an R, right?
All right, has everyone done their stats now? Jess, you've frozen again.
I have. I've missed. Like, you keep dropping out. This is so frustrating. We're gonna replace our internet very soon. Because it's just been terrible. So what was the thing about the stats?
Okay, every stat was at 2.
Yeah, I've done that.
Okay, and you get 2 points to spread in addition to that, so 2 points only. And your key stats are dex and charisma.
Right, so I can put those up to 3.
You can.
Right, okay. Yeah,
okay,
so I've done
then
that
below that, you've got what are traditionally called calculated stats. So your guard should be equal to your dex. So in the guard box, just put whatever you put against your dex. Your health is equal to your con. Your willpower is set by your wisdom and intelligence. And your defense is set by the gear that you select in a second, so we won't worry about that.
Sorry, Thomas, what was willpower again?
Wisdom and intelligence combined. Now, what you'll also see on each of your sheets, there's like choices, right? So you'll see under most of you, you've got like an equipment box directly below. You can tag one of those options usually. So I've usually set it up as an option. Or it's a text box which has a couple of options in it, and you can just select one of those options. So for instance, I'm looking at the Godbinder at the moment, and you have a 2-handed hammer, a quarterstaff, or worn leather gear as your choices. And if you choose the 2-handed hammer, you get 1 defense. So select one thing if it's a selection. And do note, Kit, that you have an arcane weapon. So this is what adds, this is in addition to your God Killer sword. or God Killer Axe, or God Killer Hammer, or God Killer Fist. Up to you. Also, Ross, I hope you noted that in your weapon list is included Death Touch.
I've picked it already.
You know, I feel like I could count on you to do that, buddy. Thanks for validating my opinion. Nice. And the fool gets to choose between a rapier or a pistol, I think. That sound right? I think that's what the fool does. Or maybe a longsword. Was it you that was the longsword?
Yeah.
Yeah. But you get a
It was a
funky-
longsword. I made it a samurai sword.
Okay, good enough. And yes, you get one advantage when talking to people of regal backgrounds. Because you've got a fine looking samurai sword. Your samurai sword is particularly impressive.
Yeah.
Oh, you get to pick 2. Oh. The fool gets 2 choices. Okay, that's cool. I didn't realize that. So, fool, you get a second choice as well. So you can take the fine samurai sword and something else of your choice.
So I get and something else. Oh.
Yeah, so you get 2 choices, not 1.
Okay.
All right. So while the fool makes that choice, dictator and knight, you have to make possibly the most important decision that you can. So if you scroll down your sheet a bit, you'll both see what looks like a giant sort of lotus picture.
Amazing.
It's actually based on a real psychological model for talking about emotion. So you have to select what your emotional palette is in the case of the dictator. So this is the emotion that you can inspire in others. So you get all 3 of the things that are chosen on your sort of on your thing. So you've got loathing, grief, amazement, terror, admiration, ecstasy, vigilance, and rage.
I wouldn't mind getting people's input on this, but I've gone with rage. Partly because I just think the dictator is actually a very angry person. I don't know if that came across. It's sort of sublimated in lots of ways, but that's what the core emotion is in terms of his drive. So I think I'm going to go with that.
And that does go all the way out to low-level annoyance.
Annoyance, yeah, and anger, yeah.
Yeah. So just constantly angry and annoyed at the world.
And everything. You can't get this code right? Why, another bug? You know.
Okay, so does anyone disagree with or have a concern with the dictator being able to wield anger? And others, remember, this isn't anger from inside, or it is anger inside the dictator, but it's projected onto others.
Yeah.
No.
I think it totally makes sense with his character.
All right. Shah, or Kit, I should say. Kit, what is calling you as the knight?
I think
And by the way, I will point out there is a dreadful synergy that can occur between the dictator who can inspire emotion in others and the vigilance knight who is empowered by their emotions.
And I already hate you.
well, see, this is the thing. I think Kit is very, very upset about constantly being overlooked, even if it's largely their own fault.
Okay,
but,
so
Yeah, but at the same time, I think I might go terror because there's that also that kind of apprehension about.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I might go terror.
Okay, that's fine. That's great. All right, so it's going to be to the opposite ends of the lotus in that case, which is terror and rage. All right. Nice. Terrifying, but nice. Okay, so then Ross, you have another choice to make, which is when you use your voice in particular, what physical change occurs? And so there's some examples there about what they could be.
I like the idea of the demonic loud voice,
Okay,
especially if it's rage. Especially if it's rage.
I confer that is a very sound choice. So when your rage fills you, your voice changes and you become this sort of demonic effect. Okay, so Godbinder. What god do you currently have a relationship with?
I think maybe a god of the sea. I haven't come up with a name yet.
The god of what? Sorry?
Of the sea.
Of the sea. I will just write
Of
it
the
in
sea.
and don't worry about the name for now. We can always come up with it later.
Yeah.
But it can be something really basic. It could be Manan, or it could be what's his name? What's the name of Nord? Could be Nord. It could be Altmol from Tolkien. Could be any choice you want.
I'll come up with one.
But the god of sea. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. So you've got a level 1 relationship with them and you currently have no debt. And I will throw in, I'll have to go get it for you. I think there's already a water god in the rules.
Yeah, there is
Okay. Well, you can just
page 92.
Well, if you want, you can just put that in as your first, because you get the first level scripture for that god. So by all means, and don't forget, you also have 3 other scriptures that you can do at will, which are blast attack at medium range, heal a character within short distance, and detect. So you just have to associate it with the god. So in addition to the scripture you get directly from the god, you can have some blast attack associated with the god's domain and some detection ability that associates with the god's domain. All right, so that's you. Feel. What type of style do you want to take, Phil? So you chose, oh, yep, good choice. Oh, we've lost her again.
Yeah.
We've completely lost her. Sorry, I missed that. Shah, back over to you then. Weapon choice.
For the arcane weapon, a hammer.
Hammer. Okay, and what ability? What? So your weapon is a heavy hammer. It's a critical voice touting your worthiness. But if it hits someone, it deals 2 instead of 1 wounds. If you roll a special.
It's a blunt instrument.
The blunt instrument. Okay. And you chose that, and you're currently there. When you scale above 0, your arcane weapon's power flexibility stance is active in your vent. When you vent, you can reduce your emotional scale. All right, so yeah, so pick one of the venting abilities below. So you have to choose a stance and a venting ability. So you've got Riposte, ranged attack, or intimidating gaze. And then you've got a venting ability, which is what happens when you release your feeling. And that is decapitation strike, combat frenzy, personal attack, or any other venting ability of your choice. Same with the stance, by the way. You can choose the stance as well.
I think we'll go for combat frenzy.
Nice.
Whack everyone.
Yep.
And intimidating gaze.
All right. So, Jess.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So sorry, not stance. Wrong character sheet. You need to choose your style. If you scroll down your sheet, you will come across styles.
Oh, yeah.
Are you a swashbuckler, a trickster wizard, a rogue, a bard, a con artist, or a hustler?
Ooh. I think I'm a rogue.
Okay, so you have concealed throwing weapons in addition to your pistol and so you're like packing a lot of
Oh, yeah.
You've got weapons
I am.
everywhere, dangling weapons.
Yeah.
And a thieves' tool. Okay, so we've now completed the creation of the Paragon. It's too late to start the combat, which is fine.
Yeah.
But we'll just put the setting in your mind. So the creative director, me, Armand Arnold III, creative director. You're not sure that's his real name, but it's what he insists on being called whenever he's there. Like, it's a name. Has kind of summoned you all together for one last weekend attempt. Like, it's like like we're going to go hard for 48 hours and we're going to finish this last bit of code and then the game will finally be ready to be released. I quote.
Yeah.
So he's brought you all together for like some intense coding session over a weekend, realizing that, for instance, Rafi, who's the only person who can actually write code, works, sort of 9 to 5 Monday through to Friday as a DBA, and the rest of you are all still committed to the project. Kit has been less present of late, but, still obviously really keen on everything. So thanks, guys. Thanks for coming. Brings you into his house because, you don't have an office anymore because, well, money's tight, and sorry about having to get rid of the banana chairs and all the other things that we had and the skateboards and everything. Like, we've got to buckle down and just get this thing out. When you come into the house, you do note that you're pretty sure the furniture in the room that he shuffles you past is actually the furniture from the office that he's now sort of got in that room just for himself, but he just kind of moves you past it pretty quickly. His house looks pretty good for a guy who should be living on ramen noodles and the odd piece of bacon. When he said
he's got independent wealth.
Well, no, you're also a bit sus on the fact that he said, like, years ago when one of you brought up the idea of actually getting someone who would actually be in charge of the finances, like someone who was actually financially competent to manage finances. And he said you didn't need that sort of, that sort of old school thinking, and you guys would be much better at managing the money anyway, and all they'd do is get in the way of your creative vision with their attempts to stop you from doing stuff. He's got a very nice house, just saying. So he brings you into a room, and basically it's like an old school LAN party. So for those of us who remember old school LAN parties.
Yeah.
So there's like all these PCs set up, and there's this giant network hub thing sitting in the middle, and blue cables running everywhere because he thinks Wi-Fi is too dicky and not reliable for proper work. But he says the first thing we're going to do is we're going to like get into the game and we're going to play the game for a couple of hours just to get ourselves, right-headed, right mindset, because this is our last chance. If we can get this out, then, this game's going to go gangbusters. I mean, Spacey's already contesting, the charges that have been brought against him. So, I mean, that's going to wash away. You do think the creative director might have spent a bit of time on 4chan recently, maybe a bit too much. It's not clear, but, he's showing that sort of wide-eye 4chan look that you've come to respect, or at least some of you. And you guys sort of are logging in. So this is Kit and Aggie and Josh and Raffi are all logging in as your sort of characters. You're not really sure what he's done to the game since the last time you looked at the code, because he's like, no, Raffi, you're going to be like this investigator, but you're also going to have like God powers. And he's like spooling this whole narrative about how you can use the god to help you investigate stuff, and that's a really cool idea that he's come up with, and he's very inspired by it. And he's been hacking some code just on the side, while you've been busy as the DBA. He's been doing that stuff during the week, just because you're not quite as committed to the game as him. He's been able to find some time. He literally says that, by the way. And
in the country for the last 3 years.
Yeah, no, whatever,
Yeah.
man. You could have coded from the Philippines. I mean, the internet, really. And it would have been cheaper because, hold on, that would have meant we were paying you less. The cost of living's lower in Manila anyway, so what's your whinge? And so he's sort of got this whole narrative about, we've got this whole sort of film noir setting, but we're going to add fantasy to it, which will be our breakthrough moment, right? Because if we add fantasy to it, no one's ever done that. I mean, sure, there are games where people play being detectives and, all this other stuff and solving problems. And I mean, there's even those stupid sort of, escape room games now where you go into the escape room and you pretend that you're actually in an escape room. But his idea is way better than that. We're going to bring these two genres together, like fantasy, classic high fantasy, and film noir detective work.
Hasn't Terry Pratchett done this?
I was going to
So
say
much.
this.
I was supposed to
I
say,
so
think,
much.
I think I've read this.
That's right.
that was
No,
basically
no.
the brief for Eberron.
No, this is better than Eberron, man. This is so much better. And Terry Pratchett was a hack. So, this is so much better than both of those things, right? This is going to be next level. And at this moment, he's like holding his hands to his head and he's going, no, next level. Next level. And you're all logging onto the game. And as you log on and you finish the log on, the die that you all got shown, so, your 10-sided and your 4-sided all sort of spin up large and lit up in bright lights sort of on the screen. And at that moment, and this is where we'll cut scene and end, and at that moment, you're all in a seedy bar. It's black lit, sort of dark lighting. There's smoke everywhere. And in the background, there's a dude, probably French, almost certainly French, playing a piano in a white tux, sort of, running the keys up and down. And you can see there's a bartender, and it's kind of maybe, you don't know, it's giving you that vibe. Bit Moroccan, maybe, a little bit, that sort of show. And you can see a couple of guys in the background.
Casablanca.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and we turn around and there's Bogart.
Well, not Bogart, but there's a couple of guys who could be mistaken for maybe Germans in the room. But the weird thing about them, and this is the last thing you see before we stop, the weird thing about them is where the light is hitting their faces, you can see that their faces are sort of broken up into striated, like into striation vision. So it's exactly that illumination issue that you've been having in the game all along. But this time, what you can see in the black bits, so the bits that aren't illuminating properly, is some sort of crawling broken code sort of moving around. So there's part faces, and then you can see sort of, classic Matrix style code running down behind the scene. And that is where we'll stop.
Excellent. Can't wait.
All right. So yeah,
Nice.
so if everyone's cool, and I do need to check everyone's cool, I intend to use film noir and detective investigation backgrounds for all of the realms that you might go to. So each realm will be some flavor of those things. And then the other thing is, as we explore, it'd be really good for people to start thinking about who do they know in their own background. So who does Kit know? Who does Aggie know? Who's in Josh's family? Who's in Rafi's, extended family? So, because we'll use that to build out the other narrative elements as we move forward. All right. And any ideas you have, Discord me. Any ideas? And you can Discord me directly if you think it's something only I should know. And you can Discord the group if you think it's something you want to share with everyone as an idea. And on that note, fortnight from now.
Fantastic.
Or fortnight
Awesome.
Wednesday?
It's not Wednesday.
Yes. Yes.
Wednesday.
Which is
Yesterday fortnight. Next one is 15th.
It's the 15th.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.